since we should be on time, shall we kick it off, Jill?
Let's go.
Okay, so here we go. And since I'm going to introduce everybody, I am going to do a little bit reading on this since I did not memorize it. So welcome. This is the first concurrent sessions of the day. This is introducing the newest Rs, Redesign, Rethink, and Re-Innovate. And we have three amazing panelists here today to talk about their company's visions and actions. And I'm moderating. I'm Chris DeTournay. I'm a Zero Waste USA associate and instructor and a Berkeley, California-based zero waste consultant and city commissioner. We're going to have some brief Q&A at the end. So if you have a question, please enter it in the chat. And we ask that you use a capital QA at the beginning of your entry if it's a question. So it'll be a little easier for us to locate within the chat. There's been, a lot of crosstalk and comments, which are welcome too. So a quick overview and introductions of our panel. Starting us off with the first R is Kurt Bjorkman. He's presenting the Bottles to Bunkers program at the Ranch Resort in Southern California, where instead of recycling, they're making sand from their glass discard stream. And as many Californians know, sand's a very limited resource in our state. Kurt's been the general manager of the ranch at Laguna Beach for the past 11 years. And when not playing host to guests from around the globe, Kurt spends time hiking on any California mountain and on Catalina Island, mountain biking and sailing with his family. Sounds very lovely Southern California life. Following Kurt, Leah Tischler and Jeffrey Brown will explore their re-innovative efforts on the True Certified Microsoft Puget Sound campus. Leah will provide an overview of their zero waste goals, programs, innovations, and objectives, with Jeffrey presenting the project breakdown and linear process. Leah Tischler is the Sustainability Account Manager for SBM. Having started her career on the Hawaiian Islands, she's been improving waste diversion with innovative improvements for the last 6 years, 4 of which she spent on this Microsoft campus. This year, she was recognized for her work by winning Waste 360's 40 Under 40 Award. Eager to explore new technology, Leah has been known to think outside the box on waste reduction solutions. Congratulations, Leah. Jeffrey Brown is a senior real estate portfolio manager for Microsoft, currently focused on managing an emerging real estate portfolio while cultivating a dynamic relationship with the Atlanta metropolitan community. He's excited about the opportunity to leverage his broad experiences and unique perspective in the integration of Microsoft values and mission with the local culture. In his previous role in Seattle, Jeffrey managed over 3 million square feet, about more or less 30 buildings of corporate real estate, with the primary objective of bridging the gap between service delivery and employee experience by leveraging a vast network of vendor service providers. And then rounding it out is Carolina Leonhardt, who's the Senior Manager of Environmental Responsibility for Cliff Bar and Company in California. And she'll cover Cliff Bar's guiding principles, their true and LEED certified 90-acre manufacturing facility in Twin Falls, Idaho, and their zero waste commitment, which notably has a goal set of using only sustainable packaging by the year 2025. Carolina has been with Cliff for 5 years and working in sustainability for almost 15 years, starting as an undergrad at American University. And a fun fact is she also worked with Greenpeace for a short while, where she once found herself dressed up in a full body whale costume to protest whaling practices outside of an embassy in Washington, DC. So thank you for that work, Carolina. And with that, I'm going to ask Kurt to go ahead and share his screen and go ahead and start your presentation, please.
All right, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to present what we're doing here at the ranch at Laguna Beach. As Chris said, I am the general manager for the ranch at Laguna Beach, which is a property in southern Orange County. We're about 350 yards off of the beach inside this incredible canyon location. And I've been at this property for 11 years. So the ownership of this group, it's a privately owned property, is very concerned and interested in, as am I, in making sure we're operating in the most sustainable fashion possible. The item we're going to talk about today is something that's kind of fun to talk about and fun from an impact standpoint. We crush every single bottle we have on property into sand once it's been used. So Sand is the third most used resource behind water and air in the in the world. So it's a very fragile resource. It is concerning in California, as it was mentioned, that our beaches are eroding. Sand isn't really plentiful to bring in, and we use it for our 9-hole golf course. We have 17 golf bunkers, and we fill those with sand. And people, if you're a golfer, you'll find yourself in those bunkers no matter how hard you try to stay out. But we really wanted to try to reduce the import of that sand, and also the export of the glass bottles going outside off of our property and into an unknown recycling system, reducing our carbon footprint. So we partnered with a company called GL Sand out of New Zealand that makes this amazing machine. We'll show you here in a few minutes. But basically, sand is dredged from various areas, be it beaches, sand dunes you can find all over the country, and there's different kinds of sand, but the sand that is useful for glass and construction, virtually everything if you're watching this right now on a screen, you're watching it through something that was made with sand. Your phone, the cement your homes are built on, the glass windows you look out, everything is made with sand. So it's a massive resource that we're trying to help shore up. Glass is infinitely recyclable for the most part, but unfortunately, the recycling system hasn't caught up. California is trying, and in the future, really going to focus on a lot of glass and reusable glass initiatives. But for now, glass isn't recycled as much, both from the consumer standpoint or the user standpoint, when they put it or don't put it in the right bin, or if it goes in a bin, it doesn't get recycled the way you think it might, and it ends up in the landfill. So we have used a system that we're going to show you that turns the sand or this glass into sand. It's actually like playground sand practically. It's a lot of fun, and it allows us to use this sand in a couple different ways. And this is just a little flow chart showing basically what happens. Starting up in the upper right, guests enjoy a beverage anywhere on property, a glass of wine, a cocktail, a bottle of water out of a glass bottle. We have no plastic on property, by the way. Then we'll crush that bottle in our system, and then the sand sifter sifts it, and you see a picture right there. That's the sand sifter. Kind of looks like a Star Wars character, and it shakes really at a high frequency and separates that sand into different grains, weights of grain. And then we mix that and put it in our bunkers. So it allows us to reduce our glass waste by over 90%. In 2000 or this year alone, we're on track to hit about 100 or 100 tons of sand. We did 70 tons of sand in 2019. 2020 obviously doesn't count, but we're on track to do more than that, because I think in 2020 we trained everyone to drink a lot more than in the past. So we use the sand to fill our golf bunkers. It has prevented us from having to purchase almost any sand from outside sources. We also use it. We have saline pools which use salt or a sand sifting system for the pool. So we use the sand there. Sandbags for flood control. Rainy season is coming up for us, and so having sandbags on hand, and also for a local community, we give those away free for the excess sand. And then we're working with the California Coastal Commission. We've sent them samples of the sand, and they're looking at it and analyzing it through their scientific process to see how it's, if it could be used in a beach environment, just to make sure it's clean and clear enough. In New Orleans, actually got a group of amazing kids called Glass Half Full. I highly suggest you Google that. Actually got a grant, a massive grant for about $750,000 through the National Science Foundation and Tulane University, and they're looking at this in a very serious way to shore up beach and waterway erosion in the coastal areas of Louisiana. So that's huge. There's no glass recycling, by the way, officially, other than glass half full in the entire city of New Orleans. We do have a lot of other sustainable measures here at the ranch. I won't go into all of them. This document I'm going to scroll through is available on our website, but we have about a dozen or more amazing sustainable initiatives that we are really, they're just ethos. It's not an initiative. It's not, doesn't have a start and stop point. We do our best to just tackle everything we can do to reduce our footprint, improve our local community, and support our local cultural cultural endeavors that are going on and around, whether it be our indigenous cultures or artist cultures. We're an artist colony here in Laguna Beach, so we really work hard to support our local community and people who live here and work here, and our environment, and then obviously making this a great resort to stay and enjoy. So if you stay here, you get to benefit from a lot of these initiatives. The sand machine here on the right, this is the sand machine. It's called GL Sand. It's designed in New Zealand. The last slide will have the website of where you can go to find this machine. It's distributed throughout the world. We're the first in North America to get this machine about 5 years ago. And also in the past, I've been asked questions about what the weight, the particle distribution is of the various granularities of the sand. And so if you really get into the science, your science junkie, you can see there the different sizes of the sand. We mix this all together and we get a really great look of the sand. And going back here, you can see those little cups. That's the actual various elements that come out once it's sifted. So you can see everything from almost like a talcum powder to the larger glass and paper waste. And if you'd like more information on our initiatives, you can go visit our website, ranchlb.com. And also we're part of Beyond Green, which is a sustainable collection of hotels. There's about 27 of us around the world. There's only about 6 in the United States. And I highly suggest you check them out. We're doing our best to become a real force in what it takes to be a sustainable property. It takes about 2 years to get accepted into that program, but staybeyondgreen.com. We're one of the founding members of that collection of hotels. And I'd welcome any questions or anything from the panel.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to do questions at the end, so people, feel free to put them in. I saw there's a question, and but keep adding. And so thank you very much, Kurt. I'm going to turn it over to Leah Tischler at this point. Leah, if you could share your screen, that would be great. That's just fascinating too, Kurt. I mean, I just love seeing that presentation. Such a great idea.
Thank you.
Sorry, a little technical difficulty. I'm used to Teams. So another little plug, just kidding. Also, thank you so much for your time today. We are extremely excited to discuss Microsoft's redesign innovation for the zero waste sector at Microsoft. So like stated earlier, sorry, I really don't. There we go. Technical difficulties, sorry. So like I stated earlier, I am Leah Tischler and with SBM, and I am joined by Jeffrey Brown, the Senior Real Estate Portfolio Manager for Microsoft. So Microsoft Puget Sound was certified a true zero waste campus, and have maintained their zero waste annually since 2016. We actually were able to expand that certification to include the annual 1 week event, which is actually the world's largest private hackathon. The event certification was a pilot through True, and one of the first events to receive this certification. We did gold in 2018 and then platinum, the highest level of certification, in 2019. Unfortunately, like stated before, 2021 and 2020 were virtual events, and it's a little harder to gain that certification through virtual. So, as many of you know, the true certification indicates that 90% or better diversion of material generated on campus from the landfill or incineration. So the campus diversion rate hovers around 93%, which is pretty impressive for a campus that amounts to about 60,000 daily occupants. That's pre-pandemic. The campus also diverts roughly 16,000 tons of material yearly. That includes organic, single stream recycling, construction and demolition, and then various other items that we divert. This statistic is also obviously pre-pandemic. So the campus diversion, Microsoft Corporation has also doubled down on their sustainability goals and has pledged to achieve zero waste from direct operations, productions, and packaging by 2030. Although they are zero waste at the Redmond Puget Sound campus, which we're discussing today, they have expanded those zero waste practices globally, both in manufacturing and in facilities. So I wanted to highlight a couple of the current innovations on the Microsoft Puget Sound campus. So not only do they have an anaerobic digester that takes food scraps from the catering kitchens, but we've also just introduced a aerobic digester that can take pre and post-consumer food scraps, fiber, and then some PLA. All the items on campus throughout the buildings and in the cafes are compostable, and the back-of-house grease is recycled, with a small amount of them going to Further Company, which makes hand soap from that grease, and that's later transported back to campus for use in the cafe restrooms. Microsoft has established a foam recycling program and an on-site landfill sort team. So the landfill material is actually moved to a central location where the team of manual sorters removes divertible material such as e-waste, compostables, or recycling. So although Microsoft Puget Sound is currently zero waste and has a robust innovative program, they realized that they rely heavily on the waste haulers and processors for data and for zero waste diversion practices. With the volatility in the commodities market and the limited number of waste haulers and processors in the region, Microsoft did not really have true control of their zero waste certification. So if contaminations were too high, or if products were no longer accepted by the waste hauler or processor and materials began to be rejected, Microsoft would run the risk of losing their zero waste certification. So it really comes down to that Microsoft currently doesn't have a cost-effective operational model to support the organization's long-term goal at Puget Sound. So the idea came around to really redesign that cost-effective operational model, not only to ensure that all waste generated on site is collected and sorted in compliance with local standards, but also to continue to support Microsoft's goals with a predictable cost structure. So Jeffrey will discuss the details of this redesign, but in essence, Microsoft would effectively collect and transport waste from each building on site to a centralized facility, leveraging technology and data in all aspects of that operation. The idea was really to redesign how material flows through site from procurement to disposal. And I'll let Jeffrey take on the actual design of the program.
No, I think that's a good segue, and providing some of that history is important to let you know that along the way on this journey, and Microsoft, I think Microsoft has been essentially piecing it all together and learning as they go. And we have a learn it all attitude, but we had to hit refresh as a result in the last 5 years because of some of the challenges that were presented to us by that commodities market and shifting away from just sending all of our recyclables to China or to Southeast Asia. So when we did that, we didn't want to piece and parcel it together. We really wanted to do a comprehensive overview of our waste and the logistics within the campus, and even looking at the front end of this. And the first slide here is really like not getting it on our campus, right? And it's the waste prevention piece. And with the 60,000 employees and potentially 10,000 guests on a daily basis, it's a tall task. So we some of the things we're looking at is really integrating in our contract language with our service providers as well as some of our manufacturers, is really looking at how they package items. One of the things that Aaliyah and our service providers at CBRE were able to do is work with our furniture manufacturers. In some cases, instead of getting individual boxes, to get them palletized, right? And then remove stuff from pallets versus having that extra waste from the packaging. Then it's also like even like not at the like it's a huge company, 170,000 employees. Everybody, a lot of people got budgets. You know, it's also in the procurement guidelines. That's highlighting it in the procurement guidelines, the requirements around adhering to our waste prevention standards and waste management standards. We talked about reduced packaging. And durables is a thing that we're exploring on a number of different on our campuses. If you think about, we're doing a huge refresh of our East Campus in Puget Sound. And one of the things that we integrated into design is dishwashers at all the kitchenette and hub locations, so we can use and leverage durables. Historically, that's been a big challenge as far as the logistics of getting items, the durable items from individual locations. They end up orphaned all around a campus to a centralized plant. Well, now we can actually be able to have those items washed by the employees in their own respective kitchenette and hubs. And then the most important piece that we learned in this is engaging the community. And engaging the community is we're providing education and understanding around what goes where, right? We have compost, recycle, and landfill locations strategically placed around the whole campus. But, you know, like that split second decision of what to put where, you know, you have to make it very clear, whether it be through color coding or having visuals where to put items so they can be compliant, so it can reduce the amount of waste that we actually have to sort. Next slide, please. And this kind of drives into the we looked at it from not preventing waste coming on campus to what the collection points look like. And when we think about collection points, it's the garbage cans, it's the compost, recycle, and landfill locations strategically placed throughout the campus. And you know, one of the things we talk about is technology-driven signage, right? Having signage that is consistently updated to reflect items that are actually that we're actually purchasing here on campus, so individuals know where those particular items should land at a split-second moment. Also, it's looking at how can we what technology we can leverage in those particular locations to identify when items are full, when there's contamination. So that's the IoT and AI collection point. And we are a technology company, so it's also using Azure and to leverage and determine that. Then we've also piloted a number of opportunities around centralized waste, meaning today, this is twofold. Today, our design guidelines are really where guide us into a CRL location is always present in a conference room. And really, we're thinking of having a growth mindset about this, is saying, is that absolutely necessary, or is it better for us to have a CRL location, compost, recycle, landfill location, collection point every 75 steps or every 50 steps? So that's one of the things that we're exploring as well. And we've done a number of different pilots and have seen some success in implementing this centralized waste program. Next slide, please. So from the waste prevention, keeping it off of campus, to the collection points, to the aggregation points. And what are the aggregation points? We have 120 buildings in Puget Sound, over 15 million square feet of corporate real estate. So as you can imagine, there's roll-offs, there's dumpsters, There's compactors in all shapes and forms, depending on the size of the building and how many occupants are in it and whether it has a cafeteria. So we really had to look at, all right, as a part of this comprehensive overview, what are we doing as far as understanding what the load looks like in those particular locations to determine some of the routing and do more demand scheduling. So now to meet with our other sustainability goal of being carbon negative and not having vehicles going around trying to pick up empty loads or quarter filled load or half filled loads, what can we do around load detection to determine, hey, this load will need to be picked up within the next 24 hours because it is 3/4 full or close to full. And then with that, it's using our technology on Azure to determine to have that aggregation point send the message to our internal logistics, our trucks, to say, hey, this is where you need to. These are the particular locations that need to be picked up tomorrow. Or these are the particular locations that need to be picked up within the next 24 hours. And then looking at and balancing our load sizes, our different sizes of our resources to fit that. One of the things we're looking at is 100% electric truck fleet. Talk about the carbon negativity, not neutrality, but negativity goal in 2030 and beyond. We want to be able to support that. So it's also looking at our building a fleet of vehicles. And we would work with a number of different partners on bringing that to life. And then I talked about it a little bit, that optimal load transfer scheduling kind of aligns with that IoT driven haul scheduling, right? That all connects to the point. So we're not just having those trucks run around and absorb energy when when it's not absolutely necessary. So then you got, just kind of tracing back, waste prevention, collection points at the CRL locations, the dumpsters and roll-offs at the aggregation points, the internal logistics to move the waste from the aggregation points to then what we would have as an internal material recovery facility. And our goal is to be able to sort 100% of the waste that's generated on our campus. And through the partnership with SBM, have been able to identify a number of different potential partners, some of which are leveraging our technology to do artificial intelligence automated sorting, be able to identify particular items on a line depending on how we program it, right? Like we can say arbitrarily that this line, the original load was landfill. Can you pick out the compost and recycling items and teach it through machine learning to identify those particular items, or it can, in some cases, it can learn itself. And then I think this is one of the most incredible opportunities on the material recovery facility, not getting into the external service provider, is we see this material recovery facility as a lab for Microsoft to really understand where our waste is coming from. It kind of drives back to that procurement guidelines and the integrated contract language and saying, we're noticing that we're generating, this is our top 5 waste generation items, right? Is there an opportunity that we can repurpose these items through a remanufacturing process internally, or maybe even make some like T-shirts out of some of the recycled waste and sell them in our company store or something, like our partner with other individuals. So we look at it as a test lab, and then to be able to understand what the waste that's going into the system, and then be able to drive back those findings to drive some of the decisions that are made about purchasing in the front end. And then one of my favorite parts, we talked about a predictable cost structure. One of the biggest challenges is today with those 120 buildings, you got 2 separate haulers. We have a compost hauler and we have a recycle and landfill hauler. It'd be great to get to the point to where we can tell them, maybe let's say arbitrarily put in a contract, within 24 hours, we have these 24-foot loads ready for you to come pick up, and they're just being staged for you to come. You can come pick them up on a specific day or time versus you coming every Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, or coming every day. That's one of the things that we think this is going to be mutually beneficial. And as a part of that, we're going to need to work with them and partner with them to understand what that looks like from a contractual standpoint. So if you just to recap here, we looked at it from preventing waste to getting on campus to how we're going to handle it, once it's received on campus. And I just had an alarm. I think we're at our 15-minute mark. Feel free. I saw some questions pop up. We're learning. Like I said, we have a learn it all culture. We're still learning and we're still piloting a lot of these efforts and initiatives. We're grateful to have an excellent partner at SBM to help us and walk us through this and counsel us through this process.
Okay, wonderful. Did you have any more slides there, Jeffrey? I thought there was another photo at the end, but we are at the end of the time. So, okay, Carolina, take it away, please. Thank you very much, Jeffrey and Leah.
All right, can everyone see my screen? Chrissy, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Just might want to make it enlarge it.
Okay. Does that work? We good?
Yes, perfect.
All right, excellent. So it's so nice to be here today, and I'm pretty honored to be presenting at this conference and sharing our story and alongside, and I'm just letting you know I have multiple screens, so I apologize if it looks like I'm looking somewhere else. But it's pretty hard to come after Microsoft and that incredible story. They're doing such great work, and especially, you know, just the detail and the amount of volume they're taking in, and then Kurt's story at the beginning too. Lots of learnings. I've been taking my own notes, and pretty incredible work that's happening here. I'm going to try to close out all of these individual presentations. You heard from hospitality, from the tech industry, and I'm going to talk to you about the perspective from the food manufacturing industry. A little bit of a smaller footprint in terms of our operations, but when we think about the waste that's generated in food manufacturing, it's coming primarily from kind of behind the doors of our production space. So you've heard a lot about how people can, you know, help employees or members of the public sort waste. We're doing this all kind of on our production floor. It's a very different set of waste that we're working with. All right, so just some context. Hopefully you're familiar with Cliff Bar and our products, but just a quick rundown. We are an organic energy food company. We're family and employee owned, and we're headquartered in Emeryville, California. And we own and operate 2 large-scale manufacturing facilities. Those are our bakeries in Idaho and Indiana. And on the right, you're going to see a couple of our products, our flagship brand, Cliff Bar, our Z Bar for kids, and then Luna, and then Builders, of course. So our company is guided by our 5 aspirations, or what we call our 5 bottom lines. It's sustaining our people, our community, our planet, our brands, and our business. And these aspirations are drawn like spokes on a wheel. And that's because it's not because our founder, Gary Erickson, came up with the idea for Cliff Bar on a bike, although he did. But the idea is that these different aspirations have to maintain tension, and we consider all 5 of them whenever we're making a decision, big or small. We want to make sure that we are keeping equal tension on all spokes of this wheel. And I'm going to be talking today specifically about our planet aspiration. And the vision for that is to conserve and restore our natural resources and to grow a business that operates in harmony with the laws of nature. So that's kind of the vision that we have for planet aspiration. And it's very much in line with the work that we're doing in zero waste. One of the ways that it comes to life is actually through our zero waste program and the commitments that we have there. We have a number of them. And the goal of this is really to support circular systems to redesign, reduce, reuse, and recycle materials. So we have a goal of diverting over 90% of our waste from landfills and incineration. We also are working on getting both of our facilities true zero waste certified. So we have one I'm going to be talking about in just a bit in Twin Falls, Idaho, and then our other one in Indiana. So that's our goal, is to get both of them certified by the start of next year. We're working on our application for our Indiana bakery. We've also signed up for the 10 by 20 by 30 food waste initiative, and that's a goal of reducing food waste by 50% by 2030. And we are also a signatory of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation New Plastics Economy Global Commitment. And like Chrissy mentioned earlier, that's all about sustainable packaging by 2025. So we've got a lot of public facing commitments and a lot of work that's going on in this space. But what I want to talk to you about today is specifically our bakery in Twin Falls, Idaho. So right now you can see an aerial view of this bakery. And like Chrissy mentioned, this is a 90-acre plot of land that this facility is located on. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to point out in this image. So one, the bakery is in southern Idaho in the Magic Valley region, and it's right near the Snake River. And as you can see, this is a pretty rural and agriculturally focused area. And our neighbor is actually Chobani in the kind of top left-hand corner. What you'll see in this photo as well is that we have a 5 megawatt solar array, as well as solar carports in our parking lot. And that generates almost 30% of the electricity that we use on site at our bakery. And it's kind of interesting, we've planted pollinator habitat under and around the panels, so that we're also helping to support local pollinator species. Couple more things. We have electric vehicle charging at the facility. And the bakery itself was actually built in 2016, so it's a much newer facility, and it was built with sustainability in mind. And it's actually a LEED Gold certified facility, which is important later on when we talk about the combination of LEED Gold as well as our zero waste certification. I think I've covered everything for the Twin Falls Bakery, but there's a lot going on. And really, the magic behind all of the things that we've been able to do at that bakery is with our people, right? Our company is our people, and we have about 300 or so employees working out of that facility right now. And really, they're the people that are making this all work, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So I wanted to call that on. Honestly, I love just seeing, you know, sometimes people don't understand or see the faces behind the products that are being made. And so these are some of the people that work at our company. All right, so Twin Falls, we received our True Zero Waste certification at the platinum level in late 2020, which was an exciting year, a pretty much a roller coaster of a year, and this was certainly a high point for us after a crazy year. But when we did get our certification, we were at about 94% diversion. And in the years that we started this process, we have seen a reduction in total annual waste, as well as an increase in diversion from landfill and incineration. So we're pretty excited just to see that. And really using the True Zero Waste framework and the certification process allowed us to put that, to kind of get one, visibility into that, and two, to make sure that we were telling that story. So like I mentioned earlier, we have the building is USGBC certified at the gold level. And because we're a true platinum certified facility as well, that essentially allows us to be a LEED Zero for Waste facility. And I'm pretty excited to say that we are the first food manufacturing facility in the world to get that designation. So it's certainly a point of pride for employees at the Cliff Bar Bakery. So I wanted to talk very briefly about three things and the ways that we have kind of rethought our way to zero waste at Cliff. One, the first step is always understanding our footprint and the opportunities that we've learned about for process improvement through kind of a deep dive and an audit into our data. Two is the creative solutions that we've brought to life at Cliff. It's kind of interesting the way an audit like that shows you opportunities, but then gives you ways to rethink, you know, how you're going to address that waste. And I have a photo on the right of what's actually one of our peanut butter buckets. Those are about 5-gallon buckets that we have our peanut butter and other, you know, nut butters show up at our bakeries. And we had a big issue with those for many years and trying to find an outlet. And, you know, we weren't able to redesign the type of packaging that our supplier used. And so finally, we realized that, you know, the Home Depot, you know, big orange buckets were a pretty hot commodity and they could be used in different ways. So we started to get in touch with our local Habitat for Humanity, you know, Keep America Beautiful and other groups, and found ways to donate those buckets to those groups so that they could use them for their different projects. And this is actually one of our own internal employee volunteer events where we brought together our entire company and did some maintenance work on a local park and used our own peanut butter buckets as a part of that. So I thought it was cool and just to call that out. We were able to save hundreds of buckets, probably thousands really. And it's pretty impressive just to see people connect the dots and understand that, that those were the buckets from our bakeries. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, the employees that make this all happen are critical to this, as well as all the other stakeholders that are involved in this process. So we learned quickly along the way that it takes a village to get certified and to go through this process, and that we needed to not only engage our employees as well as our vendors and then local groups that we work with in the Magic Valley region. So those are the three ways that I'm going to kind of call out things to rethink. So one, we did a zero waste audit. This was a very fun experience, especially in a food manufacturing facility, to see all the waste that's coming out of the production space as well as our break room. In the bottom right, you're going to see something that came out of that. We realized that we actually were generating a lot of waste and sending a lot of waste from our break room to landfills, and we had an opportunity to change that. So we made some very extensive signage for our employees in our break room to make sure that they understood the difference, and set up a compost collection, which was kind of new and different for the Southern Idaho region. We actually didn't have a local composter, but we decided to compost on site since we have, a large rural space to work with. So we have an employee garden as well as a compost pile on site. And like I said earlier, that audit also revealed some opportunities to work with our continuous improvement team and essentially take credit for the ways that we would be improving the yield of our process. So the more ingredients come in and go straight to bars that are actually manufactured and then sold on shelf, versus any issues that we had with the production process that might send bars to animal feed, the better we were doing towards our zero waste goals, right? We wanted to make sure to avoid waste generated and send that and avoid animal feed from the start. So we worked pretty closely with CI and understood what the projects were that they had in the pipeline that would help improve yield and what that meant for our zero waste program. And then finally, educating employees. That's, again, just so critical, not just educating, but getting them involved. So what the True Zero Waste certification asks you to do within the credits is also to have your employees involved in the audit. It's not just something that you hire a consultant to do and come in and take care of, but to make sure that they understand and see it firsthand. So I think that's a pretty powerful experience for anyone. And I think, they really galvanized the team. And another interesting and creative solution that came out of this too was we didn't realize how much landscaping waste we were making. Again, you saw the aerial shot of our facility, and we have a lot of property. And in the springtime, we get a lot of landscaping waste. So we realized that we had an opportunity to take care of that and bring on our honorary team members, which is almost up to 100, I think. They have close to 100 sheep that come on site fairly regularly in the springtime and then early summer to graze on our property. And that just, is kind of an interesting and fun way to, rather than, send clippings off or even just leave them there, we were feeding local livestock. So kind of a fun and interesting one. I've got lots of adorable photos of sheep on our property. And I think the next step for us too is to actually bring on an apiary. So we're going to keep some bees near our solar panels, but that is coming, and no promises, but we're having a great time at that property. And then my last point, I talked about engaging all stakeholders and how it takes a village. These are a couple of shots of our employees at that bakery that hosted on-site meetings and tours for local zero waste groups. That in the top right-hand corner is actually an award that we received from the Department of Environmental Quality. And then we went to local fairs at our colleges and talked about our zero waste work. And it's really been impressive to see the ownership that these employees have in this work, right? And how excited they are not only to talk about it to employees on site, to other employees, but also locally within our community. And getting recognition is pretty important as well, right? The employees themselves take pride in it. And then we have the ability to share that story. So it does definitely take a village. And that is it for me. I hope that was helpful. I haven't actually been watching the questions, but I'm going to take a look and see if I can answer them.
Okay, perfect. Everyone's so on time. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for those presentations. Yes, we've had a very lively chat going on about a few things. Caroline, I'll let you peruse it, but I know it will come up as a general question about packaging. But I'm going to kind of go ahead and start back with Kurt, since he was the first presenter. So Kurt, well, let's see. One easy question, I think, well, easy for you to answer, because there's one after that that might be a little more complicated, is will the ranch need the repurposed sand indefinitely?
Yeah, that answer is yes. I mean, as long as we have the golf course here and the bunkers, we'll need that sand indefinitely.
Perfect segue into the next question, which was, so how do you think that AB 962, which in California is the, was it the California Beverage Container Recycling and Litter Act, that was passed and signed in by the governor, how do you think that will have an effect, if any, on your enterprise?
Well, I think that 962 is amazing. If, you know, when it goes into effect, I think in 24, it's going to have a big impact. There's a lot of work that has to go into how that actually happens, because the onus is going to be on the distributors to provide methods in which they can reaccept or work with a third party to get the glass bottles to a washing facility, and then that washing facility has to be certified. So I'm sure there's a lot of work going on right now in that, and it's exciting to see. I certainly have a lot of high hopes that that's going to work. However, we're going to continue planning to use our bottles for sand up until the point where it's clear that that's not necessary, and that washing and reusing of bottles, which for us, we're a 97-room resort, but we do thousands of bottles a week. So removing them from property, washing them with water somewhere nearby is a major undertaking. So we're just going to plan on continuing to use that product for sand, and then when it becomes, you know, obvious that it's a much better solution to send them away to be reused, which it really is an amazing solution, then we'll switch to other avenues in which to source sand from sustainable areas, or reduce the use of sand, or reduce our bunkers. I know a lot of our golfers would really love the reduction of the number of sand bunkers. So that's our plan there. But we're really keen on supporting AB 962 and planning on working within that kind of construct, but also planning on, if there are hiccups with that, being able to continue to use our sand on property.
Is there a lot of sand loss annually?
Yeah, we basically have to, like, one sand bunker has about 30 tons of sand, and it's anywhere from 4 to 16 inches deep. There's a drainage system underneath to help prevent sand from being kind of sifted down into the soil. But most of the sand that goes away is because when people swing out of the bunker, the sand gets spread out all over. So it's not a ton of sand that gets lost, but on average, I'd say replace 2 or 3 bunkers a year worth of sand. Other than that, it's fairly stable.
And do you offer tours of this fabulous resort?
We do. So we have regular tours every Thursday and Saturday to look at both, well, mostly our organic farm. We have a half-acre organic farm with Farmer Leo, and Farmer Leo's a pretty amazing person who's worked with us for a number of years in making our biodynamic farm back behind our property a very important part of our culinary program. But the sand system is something you can schedule with me, and I love taking people out and showing them, whether it's somebody looking to bring that system into their own business or organization, or just somebody interested in how it works. We go back there and you get to crush some bottles with me. We turn on the funky sand sifter. And if you really want to take some sand home, you can do that as a little souvenir. But you'd be surprised how fun it is to go out there and watch us crush sand.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to, let's see, I see that Jeffrey's been active answering some of the questions about the Microsoft site. There are a couple questions though that I want to make sure were answered, since we know what a bear this is in making change. So what are the challenges from the occupants and the facilities on the waste diversion efforts at the Microsoft campus? Jeffrey or Leah, you can take that one.
Jeffrey did have to hop off. Microsoft, sorry, Microsoft Puget's on campus it is a very large campus. And so we not only are dealing with a number of occupants, but we are also dealing with a number of vendors as well. So overall, because of the upper management and the idea that these zero waste goals actually do trickle down, it's been very, very helpful. Obviously, there is some pushback, costs, labor in general, but overall, because of that top-down mentality and that idea that each site in the Microsoft organization is technically its own site, or its own organization, not organization, its own site, but that overall encompassing idea that zero waste is a priority, and their goal has been extremely helpful in this process. So, I would not say there's not been challenges, but
I can't imagine there wouldn't be. I mean, change is hard for people. As far as there's a couple questions about like using both outside software tracking, waste tracking software, as well as any other third-party products to identify load levels. And someone asks, do you do this with your hauler, and who hauls? And I believe you have a fleet though, don't you?
So we don't currently have a fleet. That is in the actual, that's in our goal to have our own internal fleet. But right now we do have 2 waste haulers. We have waste management. Well, I'm sorry, on the Puget Sound campus, we have 5. But my primarily we have waste management for the main campus. There are some smaller sites that have a different waste hauler. And then Cedar Grove is our compost hauler and processor. And we right now are piloting dumpster sensors on a number of our dumpsters. We are going through a couple different companies to see how well they work for our operation. We are also looking into seeing how well that could transition into our internal routing system for those on-call services once we do get a fleet of trucks. So it's kind of in the pilot process right now, but overall has been successful in right-sizing bins and such. And I'm sorry, I think there was a third question that you had.
I think that it was if you use waste tracking software.
So right now we do not use waste tracking software. I am the waste tracking software. So our zero waste certification, I am in charge of basically collecting that data from all the number of vendors that are on site. It's a little bit time consuming, but right now that's how we're being done. We are building an internal waste software that will be tracking those waste data in the future.
Okay. And a few last ones. That there's a few questions kind of about the end of life for your computer housings and your computers in general, like if there's a donation program for older computers, and also if they need to be recycled, if they can't be repurposed or reused, how are you recycling your computer housings?
So this is a little bit outside of actually my domain. There is a whole program within Microsoft, since we are a software company. You could only imagine how much e-waste we do produce. So it's a little bit outside of my scope of work, but we do use right now SIMS recycling for all of our recycling, e-waste recycling purposes. And the donation, I sorry, I can't answer that question.
That's fine, thank you, because I figured it would come up, and I didn't know if you're the right person, but everyone's always curious about something as complex as a computer and all the materials that are in it. So let's see. I think that Jeffrey did try to answer about the education, educating employees, and he felt that education alone is not an effective solution to reduction of contamination. Did you have any more comments about that?
Yeah, we do. I mean, Jeffrey's correct. It is very hard to educate all 60,000 individuals, as well as anyone coming as a guest on site. We do try. We do have educational outreach, both front of house and back of house, in basically trying to engage with as many individuals. We also a lot of times partner with social media for Microsoft to get that word out, and then create custom signage or custom campaigns throughout campus to educate individuals on the zero waste practices and why waste reduction is so important. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect system, and we do still experience that contamination, and that's why we are trying so hard to build a system where we can make sure that our material is clean at the end of the day.
Okay, wonderful. All right, and then I think that we have some Cliff Bar. Thank you, Leah. I'm going to move on to Carolina in the hot seat. So Carolina, there's some questions about the packaging. That seems to be a lot of interest in understanding, knowing where you're headed toward sustainable packaging and where you are now. And I do know, because I've done a lot of work in this, I know how difficult it is to have compostable flex packaging for food products because of moisture barriers, et cetera. But what do you use now? And what are the plans to get from where you are now to where you want to be?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And to be honest, our packaging comes up often because it's like the most tangible experience with a Cliff Bar around waste, right? You eat a Cliff Bar and then you have this package left over. And it is frustrating, right? You're like, how can this company be working towards zero waste? But again, I think, and Sue called this out too, is that you have to start somewhere and you have to be on the journey and working towards it. I don't think we ever claim to be 100% zero waste. Our operations are. One thing that I want to call out too is that I don't think people recognized in the bit of like the packaging you see at the end of the day is in reality the tip of an iceberg, because there's a whole load of waste that goes into the manufacturing process, from the ingredient processing packaging, all the way into manufacturing and then out. So we're working on that iceberg one, right? But as far as our sustainable packaging commitment, the packaging right now is plastic. It's a multi-layer flex film it does a really big job right now. It keeps moist, organic food safe for a very long time, and in a pretty expansive range of conditions, right? You can bring it to mountaintop you can keep it in your backpack for months. And the reality is that that's the goal of our food, is we want to make sure it's there for people when they need it most. And so that thin packaging does it does a lot of work. It does a tough job, but at the end of the day, we recognize that that's not the right solution. So what we're doing right now is we're considering a degree of different material options, and we're actually working with a few suppliers to design a compostable package. And people often ask, well, why aren't we doing this faster, right? Why haven't you already designed a compostable package? And there are lots of challenges that go along with that. One is to keep it food safe for a long period of time, and to make sure that we're not generating food waste in this process, right? Because it would be really challenging and really a massive, move in the wrong direction if we were to design a compostable package that didn't keep a certain shelf life and that didn't maintain our food the way that it should be, and we just generated a whole lot of food waste. There are a lot of companies that have tried this, and there are some that have tried this and had to recall their packaging because it didn't work out. So we're learning from those examples, and we're trying to make sure that we're designing a compostable package that's BPI certified that can also be accepted in as many compost processing facilities as possible. And that's the other part of the equation, is that when we're designing a packaging, part of our process in designing that packaging is not just to make it technically feasible for our standards and our needs, but also to make sure that that packaging is going to work for the composter, because we don't want to put a bunch of packaging out there into the world that's problematic for that end user, which is the composter. So we're doing field testing and working to get our packaging BPI certified. So it is a long process. We want to make sure that we do it the right way, and that we're doing this, that it works for everybody within that ecosystem. So I know that that's a tough question, but we are working on it. And like I said, we're developing a compostable wrapper, but we've got a whole series of projects in the works that are also finding other types of materials that we can use.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And there were some other great questions in there that we can't get to because we are at the hour. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I thought I've gotten to see all these presentations already, and I still find them incredibly interesting. So I thank the panelists for their time, their expertise and all their efforts, and also for everyone attending. And there's several hours of programming left, and I hope that everyone can really enjoy all the different concurrent sessions and the upcoming other speakers, the keynotes and things. All right. So thank you again, and I will see you in some of the other presentations. It's sponsor showcase right now, so you have a little time, or you can go into the showcase area and see what the sponsors are exhibiting and chat with some people. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.